Hi, and welcome to Michigan Matters. Not long ago, industry leaders believed the future of autos was electric, as EVs were going to be mainstream very soon. But shifting policies from Washington have thrown the industry a curveball, and everyone from Mary Barra to Jim Farley has been recalibrating. We have the CEO of one here to talk about his Michigan company and how it's shifted its focus too. Plus, the roundtable of John McElroy, Liam Rappleye, and Glenn Stevens Jr. is here to talk about autos, the Detroit Auto Show, and a lot more. It's a focus on our region's biggest industry and the road ahead. Let's get started.
From CBS Detroit, this is Michigan Matters with Carol Kane. Michigan Matters is brought to you in part by Cure Auto Insurance.
And we're pleased to welcome Mujib Ijaz, an entrepreneur and founder CEO of Our Next Energy, or what is this called? It's been a minute or two since you and I last were talking about all this. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's really nice to be back together with you. As Carol, you and I go way back. And
we go back.
The very beginning of our company.
The last time you and I were together, you were showing me your Detroit electric car, which you had purchased in 1922, I think was the model year, and you were showing me how to drive it. It has no brakes. It has no steering wheel. It freaked me out. It had levers that you used for all this, but oh my gosh, so much has happened.
Remember that.
Yeah, I didn't crash it, but that was a good thing. But much has happened with EVs and your company, in fact, here. And I want to talk, too, about your background for a second here. You have been into the alternative energy space your entire career. You worked for Ford. You worked for Apple's car project, the rumor is. Is that true?
That's true.
Okay. And then you decided to go the entrepreneurial route, and you launched One, making batteries for EVs and other uses. You decided to bring the company to Michigan. You were pursuing EVs, and then, in a nutshell, what happened to where we are now?
You know, 5 years ago, our dream was to become an automotive battery supplier, the American Battery Company. You know, in my career, I've always sort of observed that it's been Asia that has grown the battery industry and the supply chain, and why not the United States? Why not America? So we set out to build America's battery company, and we went after the largest market, the automotive market, realizing it would take us time to get there and we wouldn't be an overnight journey. But as time has gone on, we've had to sort of adjust our business plans and make sure that we are, first, a stable business, and go after markets that are here and now, and you know, defense and infrastructure are two areas that we see. We think automotive is still an opportunity for us in the long-term future, but in the short term, we had to make a business pivot and focus on businesses that are starting to get traction right away.
So you, amongst the industries you're now pursuing, so you've kind of, the EV's been kind of pushed aside. You're focusing on the defense industry, right? In the rail industry, right?
That's right.
Why those interesting, and what do they present opportunity-wise for you that the EVs didn't?
That's right. Well, first of all, defense is a sector that is more and more dependent on batteries. Batteries are part of every aspect of future military platforms, whether they're drones, soldier power, base power, naval base, shore power. There's so many battery opportunities in the defense sector. The second thing about defense is that American companies are being valued by defense. And, you know, to lift an American company that has an entire workforce, that has IP, you know, everything we've done with building our own LFP cell in Van Buren, Michigan, to building our pack technologies is our IP. It's an American technology by American workforce with software and hardware that's all developed here. And defense values that. So that's why we think defense is a very good first step. And then I'll tell you more about rail, but I think defense is a very promising step.
So along the way here, you were on the money chase of trying to find monies to help, you know, seed money to help build the company. You had Bill Gates amongst your startup folks, other big names like that. And getting the money to build during the time was very difficult. You eventually took yourself out as CEO, appointed another CEO, and kind of stepped aside for the moment. But you have stepped back in recently, right? Why?
Because we had to find new markets and we had to pivot our business. We were not able to continue the journey in automotive, which was the flight that we took off to begin with. We had to effectively land the plane, unpack it, think about what we had built, figure out what we could use by the factories that we already started, redevelop our market focus, and realign our engineering workforce, scale our company's burn down to a level that was sustainable. And that took a lot of restructuring. If you'd say that One went through two startups, the first startup, and then we had to restart the company again, I was in the best position to lead that second birth of the company.
Once it was re-engineered here. So what does the retrenchment mean? How many employees do you have now? What percentage of your workforce did you have to pare down? Did you cut back your manufacturing, which I know is done here in Michigan?
We pared the workforce down by 45%, which is a pretty significant number, and we're around 100 employees
Today. This is after
all of.
I read something earlier this week about 20 more people, 29 more engineers being let go.
So that was part of that 45% number included that number.
Okay.
So as we looked at the overall workforce that we had and where we were focused, by paring down and focusing on locomotives and rail and defense, that workforce is now aligned and our factories are aligned with building products. We did not cut a factory that was operational. What we did is we got rid of empty building space. We had made a big building ready for an automotive scale-up that never happened.
Yeah.
We were spending
well,
millions of dollars a year.
you certainly were not alone. GM just announced a $6 billion write-off on its books, getting rid of some of the EV stuff that they were planning, and Ford. I mean, there's been a reshuffling of ICE and hybrids and everything like that as a result of the change in Washington and some of the policies. But we need to take a quick break here. Speaking of money, pay a few bills. We'll be back with more Michigan Matters after this. We're back and talking with one founder CEO, Mujeeb Ijaz, about his company, which has retrenched after giving EVs kind of a push aside for the moment here. You're looking at defense and rail. So what are you making, and what are you getting contracts? Where are you at this moment in time?
We are getting contracts. I think the book of business that we have now, which is around 2/3 of our revenue goal for this year, we have $35 million in purchase orders right now, has been achieved. That gives us a chance to get the company moving and the factories moving forward on products for locomotives. And that's a new area for our company and a very promising rebirth for locomotives that are trying to gain fuel cost efficiency and improving their operation, but also defense drones. We're into more than one type of drone application, and batteries and drones are going to be a very large market. We see that as a need in the defense sector. We also won one naval base doing grid shore power resilience. Those are areas that we see as very promising markets, and they are growing.
The state of Michigan, this region in particular, Macomb County in particular, the defense industry is very strong here, lots of contracts here. Did that influence your decision to say, hey, this is going on right in our backyard, why don't we start looking there?
More and more we were being approached by defense, and we kind of put that two and two together, that if the defense market's approaching us and finding us as an American company with American IP, that we should go find that market as well. And as we started to build our outreach into the market, we found that sector has the right kind of focus around American companies, and they're not willing to buy products from China at the lowest price. They're willing to stand up American companies. And I think that's a really important sector of the industry that's willing to work with us and meet us where we are. You know, we're a young company, but they're meeting us where we are, and they're willing to help us grow and to scale their products. And I think that's a valuable part of working with the defense industry.
I know a lot of states are very competitive and trying to, poach on each other's states' businesses. I'm going to assume that you have been approached because you came from Silicon Valley where you're with Apple, you started your company, brought it deliberately to Michigan. I'm going to assume you've been approached by other states who're saying, bring your company this way.
At least a dozen states. And what I will say to all of the conversations we ever had is that we've had one of the best relationships with the state of Michigan that any company could possibly have. And the state of Michigan has been instrumental in helping us bring capital and to grow factories. And, I moved back from Silicon Valley to Michigan because, first of all, this is a great industrial state, but Michigan knows batteries. There's a lot of automotive engineering know-how that has gone into building the battery industry. And while China scaled, a lot of batteries were invented here in America.
Yeah. How detrimental is the policy change coming out of Washington the past year with new leadership? How detrimental has that been to EVs? And are you worried about China now being at the forefront of this revolution that's obviously taking place in other countries, other places stronger than it is here right now?
Yeah, I think the automotive electrification movement is still going to happen. I don't think that is going to stop. I think the nature of automotive electrification will take the tone of being hybrid, meaning small engines, larger batteries, give you the best of both worlds. I think that's what's going to take root here in this Western market. But China has shown that EVs can scale. and they have become, as a market year-over-year growth story, successful in scaling supply chain and EVs in that market. The U.S. and the Western countries will also do the same, but maybe with a slightly different lean towards having the flexibility of a gasoline engine to support a battery for long-range trips.
It's probably easier to get this done in China, where it's a communist country. The government says, this is how it's going to be, this is what you're going to do, than here, where it's the marketplace decides.
Absolutely. And I mean, if I were to operate, or think about the operating model of China, it operates a lot like a forceful company endeavor as opposed to a country that's sort of nurturing businesses. They operate like a business as a country, and therefore they made this a goal. To electrify was a goal. To build a supply chain and dominate that supply chain was a goal. And they invested, and year-over-year investments have an impact, where it was a concerted effort to stand up an entirely new industry. And they made public partnership projects that were significant. They electrified more than 400,000 transit buses as one way to build their supply chain. Yeah. And we have not done anything like that in the United States just yet. I think actually the U.S. military and the government will eventually lead themselves to needing national projects that do something like that. Yeah. Stockpiling batteries is one suggestion I've made.
We're winding short on time here. How much of your business is tied to global? I mean, companies and entities outside of the U.S. purchasing your products, or you see as potential market?
As we refocused the company, we decided to focus on the local market and focus on defense and rail, make our small company successful, viable, and profitable, and then we have an opportunity to expand from there. But trying to expand and do everything at the same time wasn't working. We were investing way too much capital and not bringing enough revenue in. So that's our goal now.
And how optimistic do you feel about the company as we sit here today?
Absolutely optimistic. And I'm glad to be back here with you in 5 years. And we have a way to kind of like measure the time. Yeah. I hope in another 5 years we're sitting here and talking about what a journey that has been, and the company being very successful at that point.
Be careful what you ask for. Most interesting times here in the Motor City. Muji, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
I'm glad you were here to talk about the company, all the changes and shifts. And we know things, the more they change, the more they change.
That's right.
Simple as that. Anyways, appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you.
Keep it right here. We're back with more Michigan Matters after this. Welcome back to Michigan Matters. We're now joined by John McElroy of Autoline, Liam Rappleye next to my right here of the Detroit Free Press, and Glenn Stevens Jr., Executive Director of MichAuto. It's great to have you guys with us. And Liam, this is your first time on television talking about what you write about, which is autos, and welcome aboard.
Thank you for having me. Okay. I'm really excited.
John, you're the senior statesman on broadcasting up here. Any advice?
Well, just be yourself. Don't try to act like or think like you have to act in a certain way. And don't let us do all the talking. Elbow your way into the conversation.
I'll do it.
There we go. Well, if you like Detroit, if you like autos, these past 2 weeks are like the best 2 weeks of the entire year here. We've got the Detroit Auto Show that went on here. And Glenn, let me start with you here. You run MichAuto. Your thoughts about the Detroit Auto Show itself and its impact?
Well, the first thing is important to note is that the world has changed so dramatically that auto shows that we used to know are gone, they're past, and let's not live in that past. But the show now has really stabilized itself, and I thought was really well put together, great product, great layout, some bigger commitments from some of the OEMs. And I think they're really on a good footing for the future.
Yeah, and it should be noted the show is open through today, as a matter of fact, here. And John, what stood out to you at the auto show? You were down there. In fact, you moderated a panel on mobility. And
That's right. I got to sit down with 5 students from CCS. They were able to show their senior projects, but also talk about their vision of where mobility is going. And that's what I'm really interested in, because, the old codgers, at least at this side of the table, have our ideas, but it was terrific to talk to a young generation.
And speaking of young generation, Liam, you were down there. Was this your first auto show covering it?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so yeah. I know you were down there, and I know you did some of the ride and drives and so forth. What was your thought about the auto show?
Yeah, I mean, what they're saying, I think, is true, that the auto show maybe just is not what it used to be, and I think that we can accept that fact, but I still think that it's pretty cool that you can get in an internal combustion engine inside and drive around on an obstacle course. I think that is still fun.
And I know you had a chance to do it with some of your editors there.
I did. Yes, I took my boss on a thrill ride.
Was he driving or was he in the back seat?
He was in the back seat.
As it should be. and Glenn, I know I saw you at the Breakfast Club event that we did with Roger Penske and Mark Royce at GM's, the opening of their headquarters, which kind of kicked off Auto Show on Tuesday. You were there. Your thoughts about those two gentlemen and their impact on Detroit?
I could have listened to him for 3 hours. I mean that. I really enjoyed the conversation. They're both icons. They're both so active in the industry. I thought their history, where we're at today, the current issues, and then the racing conversation.
Boy.
And we were talking about this earlier, this F1 thing that's now come onto the scene here is really exciting for the industry. It's for Detroit and certainly for those two companies.
Right, and I know that at the end of the Breakfast Club, Mark introduced the new Cadillac livery for the new F1 that they're going to do. The official unveil is February 8th, but did a video, which kind of, everybody did a microphone drop here. But John, I know the Ford did an magnificent thing too, down at the train station. The impact of motorsports and why these brands are investing a lot of money in getting into this.
Well, look, what's so interesting to me on both GM and Ford's part is in the past, their racing efforts were always out of the marketing budget. Now they're getting full on in with their engineering, their scientists getting in. You know, Ford's talked quite a bit about how it expects to learn a lot from simulation and software development with its involvement in Formula One with the Red Bull team. Same with General Motors, getting its own Cadillac branded team in there. And, you know, GM had to fight its way into Formula One. They really didn't want GM in there. But I think after about a year or so, they're going to be so glad that GM is in there. It's just going to raise this spectacular popularity of the sport. It's going to take it to another level.
And Liam, you cover Stellantis and UAW for the Free Press. I know there's a bunch of new folks covering autos there, which Nicole talked about during the Breakfast Club. But Ram Truck is also getting back into racing, right?
That's right. And similar to what John is saying, they are expecting, I interviewed the CEO, Tim Kuniskis, about this. They're expecting to get a lot of return on investment from the engineering side of it also. But they're also doing this sort of publicity tour with it, where they're running a reality TV show about who's going to be the next driver of the car. And the whole theory is that if they can expand the audience of NASCAR, and I think Ford and GM are doing the same thing, where if they can get in and expand the American audience of F1, it's more buyers, right? That's a wider audience, and it's more people that they can market to.
Yeah, the other thing too, Glenn, down at the Breakfast Club, we talked a great deal about the Detroit Grand Prix, which Roger Penske and Mark teamed up to bring the Grand Prix back to Detroit and then back to the streets in 2023 here. It sounds like the commitment is still strong there to continue that.
It's such an important part of our culture, and I loved it on Belle Isle. It's better downtown. I remember going to it early on and when it was downtown.
Yeah, were you down there? It was F1 when it started.
I was there, yeah. Now I'm dating myself, but I remember in high school going with a friend of mine and his mom to the race downtown, and it was so cool. So yeah, it's so important to us.
Could you see F1 returning to the Grand Prix? You know, it's Indy cars right now. Could you see it making it F1?
Not at Detroit, no. Formula One has very specific regulations when it comes to the pits.
Yeah.
We just can't accommodate what they need. It's tough enough to get IndyCar in there. Remember, they had to split the pits in two because there wasn't enough room for it, which is very novel.
I remember Bud Denker was on here talking about that the cars coming from both directions. Like, you know there's going to be a crash there. But I don't think there ever has been, has there? In the time that we've had it back in the streets since 23, I don't think there's been any issues with the way that they have them coming out of the blocks there.
No, there hasn't. There's been crashes out on the track.
Oh, on the track. No. Coming out of the blocks.
You're absolutely right, Carol. It's not been a problem.
Interesting. We all thought that would be, but oh well. Anyways, we got to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Michigan Matters on the Roundtable right after this. Welcome back to Michigan Matters. We're talking with John McElroy, Liam Rappleye, and Glenn Stevens about autos, Detroit, and many other things here. And Liam, I know you cover Stellantis. Is it Stellantis or Stellantis, by the way? Have you determined this?
So we haven't figured it out. I think it generally depends on where you are in the world. So in Europe, they refer to it as Stellantis. In North America, most people call it Stellantis.
So here in the Midwest with our twang, it's Stellantis?
Stellantis.
Okay. So what of the products they had down there at the show most impressed you?
I was really impressed by the company's ability to pivot back to internal combustion engines and do these big gas guzzlers almost instantly. Their Ram TRX, one of the least fuel efficient but maybe one of the most thrilling trucks on the market, is out there already. They're planning to bring that out this year. The power diesel with a Cummins massive diesel engine in it is there, and they've already dropped a internal combustion engine in the new Charger, which was previously only electric.
So this has been another year of not just pivots away from EVs, but kind of like pushing them way off the side. And John, you were down there too. Did that strike you in terms of ICE, hybrids, whatever down there?
Well, the market's evolving. I think EVs will actually make a comeback in a couple of years. But my favorite vehicle down at the show was the Army had an Abrams M1 E3 tank. And it was fascinating. The Abrams has been around for decades. Yeah. But how do you make it relevant in today's drone kind of warfare? And they've got some really interesting technology on that tank. It's all about connectivity and taking that tank into the electronic world. And I found the story fascinating.
Yeah, and Glenn, you, of course, were down there, and I know you looked at all the different models. I'm not going to put you on the spot on that because you deal with all the companies. I don't want anybody mad at you because you mentioned GM or Ford or somebody else's Toyotas. Let me ask you another question. GM used last week to unveil its new headquarters, which is down in the Hudson's building, and beautiful building, and the headquarters was really beautiful. The importance of GM keeping its headquarters to Detroit, I mean, wouldn't it have been easier just to kind of like take it all out to Warren or move it elsewhere, whatever? How important was it to keep it in Detroit?
They've been there for a long time, and it's showing a commitment to the city and the neighborhoods of Detroit. And yes, the tech center in Warren is huge, and that's really important, and they're not that far away. But that's the commitment, and Mary and Mark and the team are all in on Detroit, the new mayor, and keeping the momentum going in the city.
Yeah, and Ford's Lincoln Mercury division moved its headquarters into the Michigan Central Station. I don't know if you had a chance to be down to the Michigan Central Station or seen that.
Yes, yeah.
What did you think? I mean, that's kind of a cool place.
It's a really cool place. It's a really cool place, and it's cool to me to think that so many families have come through there and so many people have come through there, and to see that it still exists and is still sort of this bastion of the city, I find to be pretty endearing.
Yeah, and John, Ford has its New World headquarters, which had opened up. You need your running shoes to make your way through that. You could land a plane on there. It's so big, but it's beautiful out in Dearborn.
I love it. If you look at the Glass House, the old headquarters, it was the epitome of a top-down command and control kind of management structure. This new one is designed so that people interact from all different kinds of departments in different places of the company. They have their design studios right in the headquarters. They're able to build prototypes right in the headquarters. So I love the concept of putting all that together. I think that building alone has the potential to change the culture for the better of the Ford Motor Company.
And one last question here, Glenn, before we wind this all down here. Canada, which is our largest trading partner, there's trade talks going on with the trade agreement that Trump and his first administration with Canada, Mexico, the U.S. There's conversations about what's going to happen there. Will there be any discernible change, or is it just going to be kind of keep it status quo?
Well, since January 20th of last year, we have been on this roller coaster, and all eyes are on a new, improved USMCA. We hope we get there. The industry needs it. Our trade bloc is stronger together, and that's where we hope it winds up, but we don't know yet.
Wow. So do you think here, again, ultimately, with all the things we're talking about here, we are the Motor City. We know that young people keep hearing these stories. They don't want to buy cars. They maybe don't mind driving them or sharing cars. Do you think, do young people, will they still want to drive cars and buy cars going forward quickly? You got about 30 seconds.
If they're able to. I think affordability is obviously the key question here, especially when I talk to some of my friends and they're like, I'd love to get a car, but I got to get a $2,000 clunker off Facebook because I can't afford a new car. I think if people can get excited about the product, absolutely.
Tell your mom you did a really good job. You will be back. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you next Sunday for a little bit more Michigan Matters.